the Nobel Prize award ceremony is to begin. Welcome to the award ceremony in Stockholm, held on the 10th of December as usual, the anniversary of this man, Alfred Nobel's death. Alfred Nobel, the inventor, the entrepreneur, and also the author who decided to give all of his estate to what would become the Nobel Prizes. And here are the seats where we will have the Swedish royal family, which we are awaiting. And on stage, we primarily have the laureates and their families, representatives, beneath the stage, representatives of the prize awarding institutions, members of the Swedish government and parliament here in this concert hall, and the diplomatic corps. We have about 1,500 guests, as usual. And on stage, of course, the laureates and the royal family and the Swedish Academy of Sciences, the Nobel Assembly of Karolinska Institutet, amongst others. And here we see some of the Nobel laureates. Here, Thomas Lindahl, one of the 3 chemistry laureates. And first we saw Satoshi Omura. And here, the literature laureate Svetlana Alexievich, on her way to the Stockholm Concert Hall, where the award ceremony is held as the tradition is. And back again to the concert hall center stage, where we have floral decorations today. And as usual, the flowers are donated by the city of San Remo, where Alfred Nobel spent his final years. And this year, the florist Helene Magnusson wants to create a feeling of spring with the composition of flowers. Which are made up of about 300 kilos of foliage and 20,000 flowers, among them buttercups, anemones, roses and bare grass, just to mention a few. And we are awaiting the Swedish royal family, King Carl Gustaf, Queen Sylvia, Crown Princess Victoria and Prince Daniel, whom will all be seated on stage to the right. And here again, the beautiful flowers. At the rear of the stage, we have a big, huge decoration of spring flowers in pastel colors. And in the middle of the rear wall, 15 square meter floral wall decorated with 9,000 roses, carnations and chrysanthemums in creamy white and apricot nuances. And here among the guests, members of the Swedish Parliament, government, and the laureates' families and academic institutions connected to the laureates and the institutions that announce the winners, the recipients of the Nobel Prize. We will first hear, after the Swedish royal anthem and the royal family has entered the stage with the Nobel laureates, we will hear a speech by Professor Carl-Henrik Kelldin, the chairman of the board of the Nobel Foundation. And we will have musical interludes performed by the Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra under the baton of conductor Anna Maria Helsing. And this year's soloist is Daniel Johansson. The music will be pieces by Japanese composer Taro Takemitsu. We have several Nobel laureates from Japan this year. But also Tchaikovsky, Mozart, and Swedish national romantic composer Wilhelm Pettersson Berger. And the laureates that we are awaiting are, of course, the physics laureates Taki Kajita and Arthur MacDonald, chemics laureates Thomas Lindahl, Paul Modrich, Aziz Sanjar, medicine laureates William Campbell, Satoshi Omura and Tu Yoyo, and economics laureates Angus Deaton, as well as Svetlana Alexievich, literature laureate this year. 10 laureates that we have here today among the 900 Nobel laureates that have been awarded the prize so far since the first time in 1901. It was on his death in 1895 that he wrote in his will, Alfred Nobel, that he wanted to leave his estate for prizes awarded to these different categories. It was in 1896 that the wheel was discovered, and in 1901 the first prizes were awarded in Stockholm. And as the tradition holds, the Nobel laureates will receive the prize, a diploma, a gold medal, and a prize sum of 8 million Swedish kroner, which is a bit under 1 million euros, from the hands of His Majesty the King. And normally this award ceremony begins now at 4:30 here in Stockholm, and afterwards, in about an hour or so, the Nobel laureates, the royal family, and all of the invited, except for perhaps 200 of them, will be going to the Nobel banquet held in the Stockholm City Hall, a festivity with a three-course menu served to about 1,300 guests. Among the prominent guests today, we have Tsutomu Tomiola, Japan's State Minister of Education, Culture, Sports and Science and Technology, who will attend this prize award ceremony and banquet. Other guests, among them we find Kirsty Duncan, Canada's Minister of Science, Carlos Moedas, European Commissioner for Research, Innovation and Science, and also Mario Draghi, the President of the European Central Bank, who is here today. Perhaps he will share a word or two with Angus Deaton, this year's Economics Laureate, who has done prominent research into the field of consumption and poverty, and who is very engaged in questions of inequality and development in developing economies. Other participants today here are people who perform Nobel Prize-related tasks in different sorts. And now it's time for the Swedish royal anthem to be heard. The members of the Swedish royal family are entering. Here, sitting just next to the stage, we have Prince Carl Philip and his Sophia, and we have Princess Madeleine, and here is the King and Queen of Sweden with Crown Princess Victoria to the right there. The Waltz by Toru Takemitsu. Physics laureates Takaaki Kajita and Arthur MacDonald, followed by chemistry laureates Thomas Lindahl, Paul Modrich and Aziz Sanjar. After which we will see the medicine laureates William Campbell, Satoshi Omura and Toyoyo. And finally, literature laureate Svetlana Alexievich and economics laureate Angus Deaton. Laureates Takaaki Kajita, Arthur MacDonald, Thomas Lindahl, chemistry laureate this year. Paul Modrich, Professor Aziz Sanjar, Turkish and US citizen. Professor William Campbell from the United States, born in Ireland. Professor Satoshi Omura, Japanese citizen, born in Japan. And Chief Professor Toyoyo from China, affiliated with the China Academy of Traditional Chinese Medicine. And Svetlana Alexievich, the writer from Belarus. And here Angus Deaton, British and US citizen, born in Scotland, economics laureate.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel laureates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Nobel Foundation, I would like to welcome you to this year's Nobel Award Prize ceremony.
Carl-Henrik Helldin.
In particular, I would like to welcome the Nobel laureates and their families to this ceremony, which is held to honor the laureates for their outstanding contributions to science and literature.
Chairman of the Nobel Foundation
Earlier
Board.
today, in Oslo, the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for its decisive contribution to the building of a pluralistic democracy in Tunisia in the wake of the Jasmine Revolution of 2011. The importance of democracy for peace and prosperity cannot be overestimated. It is rare that fully democratic countries go to war against each other. Today we celebrate here discoveries that have demonstrated that the neutrino, a common but tiny elementary particle, can change identity and have mass. Discoveries that has elucidated a sophisticated machinery capable of repairing our DNA, without which life would not be possible. And discoveries that has identified new treatments for parasitic diseases and malaria that are saving millions of lives. We also celebrate literature that in a polyphonic manner describes sufferings and courage, and an important economic analysis of consumption, poverty, and welfare. Alfred Nobel's vision was that the prizes he established would reward those who have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind. That is, those who have contributed to making the world a better place to live in. Alfred Nobel was a multifaceted person. He was a skillful chemist and had a laboratory in each of his homes where he performed experiments. He was a clever inventor with 355 patents, and he was an entrepreneur with factories all over the world. Alfred Nobel often expressed frustrations over problems related to his business activities, but found comfort and inspiration in research, literature, and culture. He was obsessed with the ideals of enlightenment and the search for knowledge, and he had a strong belief in fundamental human values. He would probably have reacted strongly to the threats we can see today against rationalism and peaceful interactions between people from different cultures. He would probably also be sad to learn that the nationalism and xenophobia that characterized the latter part of the 19th century when he lived still prevail in today's Europe, with profound consequence, for instance, the inability of European societies to deal with the ongoing refugee tragedy. Some of the scientific discoveries we celebrate today have already proved to be extraordinarily useful for mankind in the treatment of certain diseases. These examples illustrate that research can solve many problems and contribute to a better world. Other discoveries can be characterized as basic research, and even if their practical usefulness is not obvious for the moment, these findings are likely, directly or indirectly, to be proved useful in the future. Scientific history is full of examples of curiosity-driven basic research leading to discoveries that have unexpected usefulness, sometimes in new and different areas. Moreover, even if a discovery cannot be used to solve problems of different kinds, new knowledge about our universe, nature, our society, and ourselves has an intrinsic value and proves an essential contribution to the development of a better society. The importance of knowledge as such was nicely formulated by the physicist Robert Wilson. In 1969, he was questioned by a congressional committee about funding for the accelerator that was to become the Fermi National Laboratory in the US. He was asked, "Will this accelerator contribute to the defense of the country?" Wilson's reply was, "I do not think so, but it will make the country more worth defending." Investment in research is an investment in the future, an investment for a better world. The quality of future research is dependent on the recruitment of young talents to science. High-quality education at all levels is necessary so that young people can prepare themselves for a scientific career. And we need to find ways to encourage them to become scientists. Here we need to do more, both in Sweden and in other countries. The growing consensus on the need to upgrade our school system and pay teachers what they deserve should result in decisions and positive changes. Hopefully, the discoveries by the Nobel laureates can help to increase the interest in education and science and inspire young talents to be engaged in research. We have to convey to young people that science is not only important, it is also rewarding and fun. The Nobel Prize awarding institutions have made the prizes what they are today. With independence and competence, for more than 100 years, they have bestowed the Nobel Prize on 900 laureates. The outstanding contributions of these persons to science, literature, and peace, as well as their stories and lives, serve as an inspiration to us all. The stories of the Nobel laureates and their achievements are therefore well worth telling. These are often stories about strong conviction and courage. To tell these stories, we are reaching out through our digital channels, whose global engagement is continuously increasing. Our museums in Stockholm and Oslo attract more visitors each year, many of them school children. In addition, interdisciplinary events are organized in order to promote and deepen the dialogue between science and society in general. During these events, a wider audience and students can meet and discuss topics of general interest with leading scientists, many of whom are Nobel laureates. During the past year, such dialogues were organized for the first time outside Scandinavia, starting in Tokyo and very recently in Singapore. The planned Nobel Center in the heart of Stockholm will make it possible to even more efficiently promote the vision of Alfred Nobel. The Nobel Center will be a civic building and a public meeting place focusing on science, literature, and peace. During the past year, important steps have been taken to make this center a reality. Generous donations have been obtained, which will cover the cost of the building, and a revised plan has been submitted for approval by the City of Stockholm. We trust that when it opens, the Nobel Center will be a place where scientists and visitors from all over the world can be inspired by the discoveries and contributions of the Nobel laureates for the greatest benefit to mankind. Thank you.
And now, after this speech by Professor Carl-Henrik Kaldin, Chairman of the Board of the Nobel Foundation, we will now listen to a waltz by great Japanese composer Toru Takemitsu. Before, it was not his composition, but now it's time for Takemitsu. Waltz by Toru Takemitsu under direction of Anna Maria Helsing, leading the Royal Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra. And now, presentation of the Nobel Prize in Physics.
Eders Majestäter, Eders Kungliga Högheter,
Professor Olga Bottner,
ärade Nobelpristagare, mina damer och herrar.
ladies and gentlemen.
Årets Nobelpris I
This
fysik
year's Nobel
handlar om
Prize in
neutriner,
Physics is all about
universums
neutrinos,
kanske märkligaste partiklar.
perhaps the most puzzling particles in the
Spöken tränger de
universe.
genom de
Like
tjockaste
ghosts, they
väggar.
pass through the thickest
Ja, till och med
walls.
rakt genom
Indeed,
hela
they
jordklotet.
penetrate straight through the entire
De
globe.
väger nästan
They have no
ingenting
electric
alls.
charge,
Och vi trodde
race at
faktiskt
almost the
länge att
speed
de
of
var
light, and
masslösa.
weigh almost nothing
De
at
har
all.
ingen elektrisk
For a long
laddning
time,
och far fram nästan lika
we
snabbt som
actually
ljuset.
thought they were massless.
Att studera neutriner
Studying
är
neutrinos
verkligen
is a
en
real
utmaning.
challenge.
Årets
This year's
Nobelpristagare,
laureates, Takaaki
Takaaki
Kajija
Kajita och Arthur
and
McDonald,
Arthur B. McDonald,
ledde
led
två stora
two large
forskargrupper
research
som
groups which
upptäckte
discovered that
att
these
dessa
remarkable
märkliga
particles are even more
partiklar är
puzzling
ännu
than we
märkligare än vad vi
imagined.
länge vetat. De beter sig som
They behave like
kameleonter.
chameleons.
Under sin
While
framfart
traveling through
växlar
space,
de
they are
hela
continuously
tiden
switching
mellan olika
between different
identiteter.
identities.
Neutriner finns
Neutrinos are
överallt.
everywhere.
De bildas
They are constantly
ständigt i
created
solens
inside
inre,
the sun
i
when the cosmic
atmosfären,
rain from
genom
space
sönderfall av
collides with the
atomkärnor i
atmosphere,
jordskorpan,
through the decay
till och
of
med i
atomic
våra
nuclei
muskler.
in the Earth's
Varje
crust,
sekund
and
passerar
even in our
många
muscle.
miljarder neutriner
Every
genom våra
second,
kroppar.
billions of neutrinos pass through our bodies unseen and unnnoticed. These elusive
Dessa
particles
läckande
rarely
partiklar
interact and
växer
are
verkar
almost
sällan och
impossible
är
to
nästan
capture.
omöjliga att fånga.
Yet their ghost-like nature seems very useful. While the light generated in the center of the sun never reaches the Earth, neutrino radiation from the fusion processes in the solar core passes straight out. Measuring the number of neutrinos from the sun therefore provides a means of measuring the temperature in its core. The first experiment aimed at recording solar neutrino radiation was initiated 50 years ago and was followed by many more. It soon turned out, to everyone's surprise, that up to 2/3 of the expected number of neutrinos was missing. The neutrinos seemed to be disappearing along the way. One theory, among many attempts to explain this remarkable phenomenon, was that during its journey a neutrino could change its identity and be transformed into another type of neutrino that was not visible in the detector. This is because there are 3 types of neutrinos, of which the sun only produces one, and the experiments were designed to detect only this one type. But can a particle actually change identity? This mystery was solved with the help of 2 enormous underground detectors. The Super Kamiokande detector was located in a zinc mine in Japan, 1,000 meters below the Earth's surface, and contained 50,000 tons of water, more than enough to fill all the bathtubs in Stockholm. This detector recorded the neutrinos created when cosmic radiation collides with the Earth's atmosphere. To their great surprise, scientists discovered that many fewer neutrinos reached the detector from below, that is, from the other side of the globe, than from the atmosphere above. The neutrino types that are created in the atmosphere also seem to be disappearing along the way. Neutrinos pass unimpeded through the Earth, so Kajita-san and his team realized that the great distance between the production point on the other side of the Earth and the detector gave the neutrinos extra time to change identity. This finding was presented around the turn of the millennium. Around the same time, on the other side of the Earth, a huge detector was built for observation of the neutrinos that are produced in the solar core. Unlike early detectors, the Sudbury Neutrino Observatory in Canada, 2 kilometers below the Earth's surface, could effectively record all 3 types of neutrinos. MacDonald and his research team were then able to show that the total number of neutrinos from the Sun reaching the Earth corresponded closely with expectations, but that the type of neutrinos produced in the solar core was too few.
Och har långtgående konsekvenser även för kosmologin. Professor Kajita, Professor MacDonald.
Professor MacDonald, Professor Kajita.
You have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for the discovery of neutrino oscillation, which shows that neutrinos have mass. On behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, it is my honor and great pleasure to convey to you the warmest congratulations. I now ask you to step forward to receive your Nobel Prizes from the hands of His Majesty, the King.
Professor Takaaki Kajita from Japan, affiliated with the University of Tokyo. Receives the diploma and the gold medal from His Majesty the King of Sweden. He is accompanied by his wife Michiko Kajita, a daughter, other family members, friends and colleagues. His party also includes the laureate's younger sister and brother. Professor Arthur MacDonald from Canada, affiliated with Queen's University in Canada. The audience is his wife, Janet MacDonald, the 2 sons and a daughter, and other family members and colleagues. Also the Principal and Vice Chancellor of Queen's University, Professor Daniel Wolf. Now it's time for the presentation of the 2015 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And the speech is held by Professor Claes Gustafsson.
Eders Majestäter, Eders Kungliga Högheter, ärade pristagare, mina damer och herrar.
A fertilized egg cell contains all the information needed to create a human being, and this information is stored in our genetical material, our DNA. The discovery of DNA is ascribed to Friedrich Mischer, who isolated a new substance in 1869 from white blood cells. He performed his work in the kitchen of a castle in Tübingen using dirty bandages that he collected daily from a local hospital as his raw material. And Mischer isolated nuclein, which we call DNA today. 60 years later, Phoebus-Levin demonstrated that DNA consisted of nucleotides with 4 different bases, and in the 30s, 2 Swedish scientists, Torbjörn Kaspersson and Einar Hammarsten, succeeded in demonstrating that these nucleotides were linked into very long DNA chains. But at the time it seemed unreasonable that such a simple, repeated molecule as DNA was capable of coding all the information needed to create something as complex as a human being. The first experimental evidence that DNA was actually the bearer of genetic information was not published until 1944, when Oswald T. Avery showed that DNA transferred between different strains of pneumococcus can change the traits of the recipient bacterium. The next important step came when biochemist Erwin Chargaff, using paper chromatography, was able to show that the relative numbers of the 4 bases in DNA co-varied. Chargaff's conclusion, along with the X-ray crystallographic images of DNA produced by Rosalind Franklin and Maurice Wilkins, later provided the foundation for the ingenious molecular model building that enabled James D. Watson and Francis Crick to suggest the structure of DNA, which was published in Nature in 1953.
Förs det genetiska materialet vidare till ständigt nya generationer.
The DNA molecule consists of 2 complementary strands that can separate and then can be used as the template for synthesis of new DNA. The discovery that genetic information is stored in DNA and an understanding how this information is passed down to new generations are amongst the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century. What keeps our DNA so astonishingly intact is a host of molecular repair mechanisms. A swarm of proteins monitor our genes. Damage to our DNA is continuously being repaired, and mistakes that occur during DNA replication are corrected. This year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry is being awarded to 3 scientists who have mapped these fundamental processes at the molecular level of detail. Thomas Lindahl's work succeeded in showing that spontaneous chemical processes cause thousands of potentially devastating damages to the genome of a cell every day. He concluded that there must be molecular systems that repair all these spontaneous damages, thereby opening the way to an entirely new field of research. Through his work, he was able to identify and characterize the repair mechanism that we know today as base excision repair. Paul Modrich studied how a cell can correct the base mismatches that sometimes occur during DNA copying. Through careful studies, he was able to identify and characterize the molecular machinery that is responsible for so-called mismatch repair. Today, we know that this system corrects 99.9% of all the errors that occur during replication of human genetic material. DNA can also be damaged by external factors, among them ultraviolet light and smoking. Damage that occurs in this way can be removed with the help of nucleotide excision repair. Our third laureate, Aziz Sanjar, has identified the components that build up this system and has explained in molecular detail how they work together to correct DNA damage.
Thomas Lindahl, Paul Moodrich, and Aziz Zanjar. Your studies of DNA repair have revealed in finest molecular detail an amazing set of repair mechanisms that ensures the integrity of our genetic material. That is a truly great achievement. On behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, I wish to convey to you our warmest congratulations. May I now ask you to step forward and receive your Nobel Prizes from the hands of His Majesty the King.
Professor Emeritus Thomas Lindahl, born in 1938 in Stockholm, Sweden, is now affiliated with the Francis Crick Institute and Clare Hall Laboratory in the United Kingdom. He is here in Stockholm with his daughter and son, as well as his grandchild. Professor Paul Moodrich was born in the US in 1946 and is a US citizen with Howard Hughes Medical Institute and Duke University School of Medicine. He's accompanied by his wife, Vickers Burdett, and a daughter. Professor Aziz Zanjar from Turkey is a Turkish and US citizen, affiliated with the University of North Carolina in the US. He's here in Stockholm with his wife, Esta Zanjar, family members, friends and colleagues. And now we will listen to The Maiden Under the Linden Tree by Wilhelm Pettersson Berger, the Swedish national romantic composer. Soloist is Daniel Johansson. tenor Daniel Johansson, age 35. The Royal Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra, and Anna Maria Helsing is the first female conductor ever to lead the orchestra at the Nobel Prize Awards ceremony. Now, time to listen to a speech by Professor Hans Forsberg.
Mina damer och herrar. Runt omkring oss I naturen
presenting the Medicine Prize.
Pågår ständigt en maktkamp.
All around us in nature, in our skin and in our bodies, a constant power struggle is underway between myriads of microscopically small creatures that are fighting for their survival. Many are important constituents in nature's ecosystems, while others attack us humans and cause disease and death. This year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is awarded to scientists who have enlisted the help of nature and made use of weapons from this power struggle in order to develop drugs against parasites that have plagued humankind since ancient times. Parasitic roundworms cause lymphatic filariasis and river blindness. These are lifelong diseases that have afflicted hundreds of millions of people in the poorest parts of the world. Satoshi Omura of Japan and William Campbell of the United States have made discoveries that have led to a drastic decline in these diseases and that will hopefully eradicate them within 10 years. It began with Satoshi Omura's search for natural substances that could be used in producing new drugs. He became an expert in culturing streptomyces, a type of soil bacteria known to produce antibiotic substances. He traveled around and collected thousands of soil samples from all over Japan, which he used for culturing bacteria. In one of Omura's bacteria cultures, which was sent to William Campbell's laboratory, a whole new strain of streptomyces was discovered, one that would change the world. In Campbell's laboratory, extracts from these cultures were given to mice that had been infected with roundworms. One of the extracts was remarkably effective, killing all the worms. Campbell purified the active component, which was given the name ivermectin. With the help of chemists, it was modified to become even more effective. The new substance was called ivermectin, and it turned out to have an extremely powerful effect on parasites in farm and domestic animals. Campbell now wanted to test whether this drug was equally effective in humans, and he helped start clinical studies on patients with river blindness. One single dose was enough to kill the larval form of the worm that infects the eyes. This was the beginning of an anti-parasite drug that has saved hundreds of millions of people from severe disabilities. Malaria is caused by parasites that are spread by mosquitoes. The disease infects the red blood cells and leads to fever, shivering, and in severe cases, encephalitis. Every year, 500,000 people die of malaria, most of them children. During the 60s and 70s, Tu Youyou took part in a major Chinese project to develop anti-malarial drugs. When Tu studied ancient literature, she found that the plant Artemisia annua, or sweet wormwood, recurred in various recipes against fever. She tested an extract from the plant on infected mice. Some of the malaria parasites died, but the effect varied. So Tu returned to the literature, and in a 1700-year-old book she found a method for obtaining the extract without heating up the plant. The resulting extract was extremely potent and killed all the parasites. The active component was identified and given the name artemisinin. It turned out that artemisinin attacks the malaria parasite in a unique way. The discovery of artemisinin has led the development of a new drug that has saved the lives of millions of people, halving the mortality rate of malaria during the past 15 years. Professors William Campbell, Satoshi Omura, and Tu Youyou.
Your discoveries represent a paradigm shift in medicine, which has not only provided revolutionary therapies for patients suffering from devastating parasitic diseases, but also promoted well-being and prosperity for individuals and society. The global impact of your discoveries and the resulting benefit to mankind are immeasurable. On behalf of the Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet, I wish to convey to you our warmest congratulations. May I now ask you to step forward to receive the Nobel Prize from the hands of His Majesty the King.
Professor William Campbell, US citizen, born 1930 in Ireland, affiliated with Drew University in the US. He is here in Stockholm with his wife, Mary Campbell, 2 daughters and their families, his brother and sister-in-law as well as friends. Professor Satoshi Omura, Japanese citizen, born in 1935 in Japan, affiliated with Kitasato University. He's here in Stockholm together with his daughter. The party also includes his brother and sister and other family members. Professor Tu Youyou from China, born in 1930, is affiliated with China Academy of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Professor Tu Youyou is here in Stockholm with her husband Li Tingjiao and their 2 daughters. And after this presentation of the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, we will listen to Lenski's aria from Eugene Onegin by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Once again, the soloist is Daniel Johansson. The Royal Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra is directed by Anna Maria Helsing.
Love
Tchaikovsky precedes the award for literature,
kliver nu fram till
the work of writer
för
Svetlana
att presentera Svetlana
Alexievich.
Alexievich.
The speech is presented by writer Per Westberg, member of the Swedish Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel laureates. Alfred Nobel wanted the prize to go to the person who produced the most outstanding work in an ideal direction. Svetlana Alexievich has met this requirement. Voices of Utopia, her suite of 5 books describing the catastrophes of the 20th century, is Alexievich's literary and moral masterpiece. A charting of the Soviet citizens' mental history that she associates with a grave, a bloodbath, and an endless dialogue between executioners and victims, concealing as much as possible. The work, she says, is about Russia's stifled scream,
om ett
about a past
förflutet
that
man
must not
inte vill ha
return,
tillbaka,
and now that
ett
cannot
nu
be
som
accepted,
inte kan
a
godtas,
future
en
that proffers
framtid man
no
inte har
hope.
ett hopp om. Som en stenograf
Like a stenographer
vid
in a
högre
high
rätt
court, she
återger hon de
enumerates the
orättvisor
injustices
som
visited
drabbar
on the
de
unprepared and
oförberedda och
defenseless.
värnlösa.
Here are the
skrivs
words of
orden
thousands
från
of witnesses for the
tusentals
first and
vittnen
only
ned
time.
för första och enda gången. Utan
Without
henne
her,
skulle
they
de
would never have
aldrig
seen
ha
the
kommit
light.
i dagen. Det hon
She looks
söker
for the instant
är
that
det
shakes a
ögonblick
person to
då
the
en
core.
människa skakas i sina grundvalar.
As
Som
in
i bön
Voices
för
from Chernobyl,
då en sköterska
when a
varnar en
nurse warns
förälskad
a
kvinna
woman that
att
her
hennes man
beloved has
inte
now
är människa
become a
mer,
reactor,
utan en
not a
reaktor.
man.
Men
But the
kvinnan bryr
woman
sig inte om att
ignores her and
strålningen
lets the
från mannens
radiation
kropp
from the
dödar
man's body
barnet
take
hon
the
bär
life
inom
of the
sig.
baby she is carrying
Boken
inside her.
blir en påminnelse
The book
om
becomes a reminder
hur
of
det
how past
förflutnas
radiation
strålning
dictates our lives,
bestämmer
our
våra
morality
liv,
for
vår moral
decades.
i decennier framåt.
In
I kriget
War's
har inget
unwomanly
kvinnligt
face,
ansikte. Intervjuar
Alexejevich interviews
500 av
of
de
the
otaliga
countless women
kvinnor
who
som
served in
deltog
the
i
Red
Röda
Army.
armén.
They tell of
berättar
Germans
om hur tyskarna
displaying the
ställde upp
severed legs
fångarnas
of prisoners
avhuggna
from
ben på
foxholes.
skyttevärnet,
A
hur en
mother
mor
who
dränkte
drowned her
sitt
crying
gråtande
baby so
barn
as
för
not
att
to
inte
betray her
förråda sin by.
village. And
hur
how
de
women
använde
made
kottar
their
som
hair
papiljotter.
curlers from
Hemma
pine
togs de
cones.
för soldathoror
Back
och
at home they were
förkastades
seen
av
as
sina
soldiers'
familjer.
whores and rejected by
Männen
their
var
families.
hjältarna,
Men
kvinnorna
were
blev
the
utan
heroes, the
medaljer.
women were denied medals.
Ondskans
Alexejevich
ansikte
uncovers the face of
avtäcker
evil
hon
in
i
a
en
truth
sanningsprocess
process where
som får
heat
lögnen att
incinerates
brinna
the
upp i
lies
hettan.
and in
Och i ett
language
språk
that between the
där
lines
smärtans
conveys the
tystnad
silence of pain.
förnims mellan varje rad.
She
Hon
waits
väntar
until the
tills
voices
rösterna
lodge
stannar
in
inom
her,
henne och
acquiring a
förvandlas
harder
till hårdare
sheen.
lyster. Så blir
This
hon
makes her the
den
most sensitive of
lyhördaste
contemporary
av
historians
samtidshistoriker
and a genre
och en
innovator.
genreförnyare.
In her
sin
dry
torra saklighet,
matter-of-factness, in
i
her
sitt
striving to keep her eyes
bemödande
open rather than
att hålla
filled with
ögonen
tears,
öppna
she
snarare än
unnerves
fyllda av
her
tårar.
readers, especially in
Får
this
hon oss
year
läsare
of
att
refugee
skakas om,
flux, when her
inte
stories
minst
of
i
the stubbornness and
flyktingströmmarnas
courage
år,
of the
då
helpless are
hennes
more apt
berättelser
than
om
ever.
de hjälplösas envishet och mod är aktuellare än någonsin. Det är
Having
den
grown
lilla
up in a
människan
culture
hon
of
älskar,
sorrow,
inte de stora
more
idéerna.
localized, near the
Uppvuxen som hon
mind
är
forests of
i en
Belarus,
kultur av sorg.
a country where
Närmare
every
bestämt
fourth inhabitant
intill
was killed.
Vitrysslands
Her
minerade
love is for
skogar,
the little
ett
people,
land där
not
var
the
fjärde
grand
invånare
ideas.
dödats. Den muntliga
The
berättelsen
oral
är
narrative is
litteraturens
literature's
källa.
wellspring. Through
Genom
memory,
minnet
people retain the
bevarar en
contours
människa
of their
konturen av
existence.
sin existens.
To frame a
Att
history,
lyfta fram
a
en
face,
historia,
and to render
ett
them visible,
ansikte och
one
göra dem
after the other,
synliga
is a
ett efter ett,
magnanimous
är en
act
medmänsklig
and a
handling
documentary
och en
bequest to the future,
dokumentarisk insats för
and
framtiden
an artistic
och
accomplishment that is
en
matchless
konstnärlig
of its kind.
bedrift som i sitt slag saknar motstycke.
Using
Med
questioning
utfrågning och
and
lyssnande
listening as
som
her
hemliga
secret
vapen
weapons,
tränger
Alexejevich
Alexejevich in i
burrows into
känslorna
the
hos
feelings of the
historiens
extras of
statister,
history,
de
the
förbisedda.
disregarded. She
Där
finds love
finner
and
hon
death,
kärlek
thirst for
och död,
power, and
maktbegär
unexpected
och
solidarity.
oväntad solidaritet.
She calls
Hon kallar
herself
sig
a
en
historian
själens
of the soul.
historiker.
Her
Det är
studies of
människans
the human
gåta
mystery.
hon utforskar. Alexejevich förenar
Alexejevich unifies
historikerns
the historian's
precision
precision
och
with the
diktarens
empathy of a
inlevelse
poet in a
till ett
lament that echoes
sorgekväde
all
som
conceivable
ljuder av
experience.
all tänkbar erfarenhet. Hon är
She's
en
a lie detector
lögndetektor
and an
och en
inexhaustible source of
outsinlig
knowledge
kunskapskälla
about obedience
om
as a curse,
lydnaden som
propaganda
förbannelse,
as
om
seduction.
propagandan som förförelse.
In
Kort
brief,
sagt, om
the human
människans
condition.
villkor.
For
Ty,
as
som
she
hon
exhorts
framhåller,
us
det finns
there is
bara
only one
en
way out,
utväg, att börja
to begin to love
älska
people,
människorna,
to
att
understand
förstå
them with
dem
the help
med
of love.
kärlekens hjälp. Daraga Svetlana Alexejevich,
Dear Svetlana Alexievich, the Swedish Academy congratulates you and invites you to now receive this year's Nobel Prize for Literature from the hands of His Majesty, the King.
Knepigt med de ryska stavelserna där, men det gick.
Is born in Ukraine in 1948, Belarusian citizen. The party accompanying her to Stockholm includes a number of friends, her publisher and translator, as well as her literary agent, Galina Adolfsson. Prize to Alexievich, who receives a lot of applause here in the Stockholm Concert Hall. We will listen to some music by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Det är musikdags igen. Det var Mozart i början av prisutdelningen. Nu blir det Mozart igen. Rondo alla turca.
This Ronda alla Turca.
Stycket är ett märkligt exempel på hur 1700-talets europeer uppfattade turkisk militärmusik.
We will hear the presentation speech of the Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel.
Ärade pristagare,
Esteemed Nobel laureates, ladies and gentlemen.
Immanuel Nobel
was born on March 24, 1801.
Vi vet inte
We
mycket
know
om
very
hans
little about
barndom,
his childhood,
förutom att
except that his
skolgången
schooling
blev
was
kort,
short,
åtminstone till en
at
början.
least to begin with.
Sådant
This was
är
how
livet
most
för de
people in
flesta i
Sweden lived
Sverige
at
vid den här
that time,
tiden. Om man
provided
nu haft
they were
turen
lucky
att vara
enough to be
bland
among
de
the
65 av 100
65% who
som
survived
överlevt
long enough
länge
to
nog
start school.
för att börja i skolan.
But
Immanuel besitter dock en
possessed
särskild
exceptional
teknisk
technical
begåvning.
talent and
och
soon
blev
became an
snabbt
engineer
ingenjör och
and
uppfinnare.
inventor.
Vid
At the
30
age of 30,
års
he was
ålder
already
är han
successful
redan
entrepreneur,
framgångsrik företagare,
married,
gift,
with 2
två
children,
barn
and his
och
own
eget
house
hus
on the
på
Isle of
Långholmen i Stockholm.
Långholmen in Stockholm.
Men lyckan
But his
vände.
luck turned.
Immanuel
Immanuel
förlorar
lost 3
pråmar med
barges
värdefull
filled
last.
with the valuable
Familjens
cargo.
hus brinner ner
The
till grunden.
family's house burned to the ground.
När
When
tredje
a
sonen
third son was
föds,
born on
den
October
21
21st,
oktober
1833, his
1833,
father's company had
har
already
faderns
gone
företag
bankrupt.
redan gått i konkurs.
Weak
Svag
and sickly,
och sjuklig,
Alfred Nobel arrived in a poor household.
fattigt hushåll.
His gloomy childhood experiences marked him for life. Perhaps this is why, as a celebrated inventor and wealthy industrialist, Alfred later became a close friend of author Victor Hugo, portrayer of the unfortunate and poor.
Samhällets
Think of
olycksbarn,
Les Misérables.
Les Misérables. Genom
Through Hugo's
gestaltning
tales
av
of human
människors
adversities,
motgångar
those of us
kan
who
också
are
vi,
more
mer
fortunate, can
lyckligt
also begin to
lottade,
grasp the plight of the
börja
poor.
begripa fattigdomens villkor.
But where the
Men
task
där
of the writer ends,
uppdrag
that
tar
of the
slut,
researcher
tar
begins.
forskarens liv.
Only by using the tools of
Det är
science can we
bara med
estimate the
vetenskapliga
scale of
verktyg
poverty
vi kan beräkna
and understand
fattigdomens
how we can
omfattning
best fight it.
och förstå hur vi bäst bekämpar den.
Scientific insights
Forskningens insikter
are rarely
är sällan
obvious,
självklara
except in
annat
retrospect.
än i efterhand.
How do you measure a poor
Hur
person's
mäter man
income
en
and living
fattig
standard?
människas inkomst och levnadsstandard? Det som framförallt
What is
brukar
typical of
känneteckna en
most
riktigt
genuinely
fattig
poor
är
people is the
avsaknad av
absence of
ordinarie
ordinary
anställning och
employment and a
regelbunden
steady recorded
registrerad
income.
inkomst.
They live
Hon lever
in
i
an
en
informal
informell
economy
ekonomi
characterized by
präglad av
subsistence
självhushåll
living
och
and
byteshandel.
barter.
Fattiga människors livsöden lämnar få
The life
spår
stories of
i
poor people leave
nationalräkenskaperna.
few traces in the national accounts.
Angus
Deaton
insåg att
realized that
man beskriver
material
materiell
poverty
fattigdom
is
mycket
much
bättre
better
från
described from the
utgiftssidan
expenditure
än från
side than from the
inkomstsidan.
income side.
Vad äter människor?
What do people
Hur
eat?
mycket
How
och hur
much
ofta?
and how often?
Hur
What is
bor
their housing like?
Hur många barn
How many
har de?
children do they
Vilka
have?
kläder,
What clothes,
sanitära
sanitary
villkor
conditions
och
and health
hälsotjänster
services are
står
available
till
to
deras
them?
förfogande?
Thanks
Tack
to
vare decennier av
decades of
omfattande
extensive household
hushållsundersökningar
surveys,
som
which
Deaton
Deaton
varit med
helped
att
design and
utforma och
analyze,
analysera,
today
kan vi
we can
idag
provide a
ge ett
scientific answer to the
vetenskapligt
big
svar på
question:
den stora frågan:
is
ökar
material
eller
poverty
minskar
around the
den
world
materiella
increasing
fattigdomen i världen?
or decreasing?
Svaret är att andelen av
The answer is
jordens
that the
befolkning som
percentage of
lever
the
i
world's
djup
population
misär
living in deep
snabbt
misery
minskar.
is decreasing. Why?
Ekonomisk tillväxt
One important
i
reason is that
världens
economic
folkrikaste
growth in the
länder,
world's
Indien och
most
Kina,
populous countries,
har
India and
förbättrat
China, has
livsvillkoren
improved
även
living
bland de
conditions even
fattigaste.
among the poorest.
Samtidigt
But not
antyder
all the
hushållsundersökningar
findings from these
att
household surveys are
nationalräkenskaperna
equally
överdriver
uplifting.
tillväxten.
People's living standard
Bortsett från att den
increases
informella
more
sektorn
slowly
ökar
than recorded
när
production.
fattigdomen sjunker.
National accounts overestimate
Genom Deatons
growth
forskargärning
since
går en
they
röd
ignore
tråd.
the fact that the
Vi
informal
kan inte
sector
trovärdigt
shrinks
analysera vad som
as
händer i det
poverty
stora
falls.
förrän vi begriper vad som händer i det lilla.
One consistent
Om
theme
vi vill förstå
runs
världen,
through Deaton's
måste vi
research
först
contribution.
noggrant studera hur
It is wrong to
enskilda,
believe that people's
riskutsatta
various
människor,
expenditures are strictly
liksom
proportional to their
Immanuel
income
Nobel,
and wealth.
anpassar
Low-income
sig till
earners
sina
often consume
olika
entirely
och
different goods than
ständigt
high-income
växlande
earners.
materiella villkor.
Both save for the future, but the
Bara då
poor save
kan
for
vi
partly
förklara
other reasons than the
samspelet
richest.
mellan konsumtion, sparande och inkomst i hela samhället. Bara då kan vi förstå hur reformer
Angus
påverkar
Deaton
fattiga och rika.
teaches us to carefully study how individuals living in a risky environment, like Immanuel Nobel,
Your research
adapt to their
spans
different and constantly
innumerable
changing
aspects of
material
consumption,
conditions.
great and small. yet it is unified. You build new theories and discover unrecognized predictions of old ones. You master every detail of existing data, and you invent additional data through new measures and measurements. You are an optimist, a skeptic, and a humanist. And above all, you are an empiricist, always determined to confront what we believe with what we can know, just like Alfred Nobel. It is an honor and a privilege for me to convey to you, on behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, our warmest congratulations. May I now please ask you to step forward and receive your prize from His Majesty the King.
Professor Angus Deaton, a British and US citizen, is born in 1945 in Edinburgh. He is affiliated now with the Princeton University in the United States of America. And the speech we just heard was by Professor Tore Ellingsen, the chairman of the Committee for the Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel. And here with Mr. Deaton in Stockholm is his wife, Professor Anne Case, with whom he's done quite a lot of research, actually, and their daughter and son, and also some grandchildren. And now time for some more music. The Swedish national anthem, Du gamla, du fria. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven to the right here. Prince Carl Philip and Princess Sofia. And now the 1,570 guests here in the Stockholm Concert Hall will listen to some more music. The Queen of Sheba's Festivity March from the Prodigal Son by Swedish composer Hugo Alfvén. And that is played while the guests are leaving the auditorium, beginning with the King and Queen of Sweden, King Carl Gustaf and Queen Silvia, Crown Princess Victoria and her Prince Daniel, who were sitting on the onstage, and they are followed by the sister to Crown Princess Victoria, Princess Madeline, and Mr. Christopher O'Neill, and the brother of Crown Princess Victoria, Prince Carl Philip, and Princess Sofia. The 10 Nobel laureates that are congratulated by members of the different committees that awarded them the prize. On this stage we have the members of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, the Nobel Assembly of Karolinska Institutet, which awards the Medicine Prize, and the Swedish Academy, who this year chose Svetlana Alexievich as the laureate of literature. And also members of the board of directors of the Nobel Foundation and some previous laureates are up here as well. Laureate Arthur MacDonald, and here we have Per Westberg, who presented Svetlana Alexievich, whom we see here. This year's literature laureate. Now people are leaving the auditorium, headed mostly for the Stockholm City Hall, where the banquet is held. The banquet will begin around 7 this evening, a bit earlier perhaps even, but around 7, and then we'll keep on all evening until about 10 o'clock when the dance begins in the Stockholm City Hall. After which, usually, the tradition gives that one of the Stockholm academic locations, such as the Stockholm University or the Stockholm School of Economics or Karolinska Institutet or the Royal School of Technology, holds an after party for the Nobel laureates, a very exclusive party, and their companies. Now time for the photo ops and meets and greets up on the stage. Also headed for the banquet, we have some of the guests from abroad today. For instance, Tsutomu Tomiola, Japan's State Minister of Education, Science and Technology, who will also go to the banquet. Kirsty Duncan, Canada's Minister of Science, who is here to greet one of her countrymen as a laureate. Carlos Moedas, who is the European Commissioner for Research, Innovation and Science, is here. And also the President of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, who is master of the interest rate in the EU, the Eurozone anyway. And also some ministers from the Swedish government, such as Minister for Healthcare, Minister for Higher Education, Minister for Education, and the Prime Minister, of course, and also Minister of Foreign Affairs. In the upper right corner is Angus Deaton, the economics laureate, who receives Sveriges Riksbank's prize in economic science in memory of Alfred Nobel. It is a recent addition to the original Nobel Prizes. From the beginning, the Nobel Prizes were awarded in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace, as in the will of Alfred Nobel, the will that was found in 1896. To some dismay of his family, he in the will wrote that his estate would go to a prize that would go to the persons who had done most for humanity in the recent year. But in 1968, to commemorate the 300-year anniversary of the Swedish Central Bank, which actually is the oldest central bank in the world, They institute this prize that they wanted to be part of the Nobel Prize award ceremony and festivities. So it is commonly called the Nobel Prize in Economics, but to be exact, it is the Swedish Central Bank's Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel. That has been awarded since 1969. And with that, and these joyful, merry pictures from the Stockholm Concert Hall, I leave you to follow the festivities during the Nobel Week. This is Alexander Noren from Stockholm. Good evening.